Goes with the territory.
Yep, 100%. And I definitely want to properly introduce you, okay? So
Uh,
I know that you are a third degree black belt.
I
I
am.
also know that you started you have some proprietary software or something as well, or what was you're just like
I
done a lot.
I created a system teaching people how to flip houses step by step. And it really focuses not only on the details of how to get in and analyze and flip the houses, it also goes into how to build the business and get into a process of, okay, now you can flip a house, but how do you build the business of flipping a house? And I did that. I literally just took notes as I was building my last house flipping business.
Wow. And now you're in the business of going to Korea right now. Tell everybody what's going
Yes.
on with that. Sir, that's a big
Oh,
deal.
we're going to Korea to compete against the Korean in world championships in their own game. It's like Koreans coming here with a football team and playing the Super Bowl against us. It doesn't make any sense, but it's super exciting.
Well, anybody knows, I'm telling you, I get goosebumps. I remember when you're chopping the block, they're gonna get smoked. So, we were chopping blocks together. That's how I met Amy. That was my first time ever hitting wood like that, too. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, we break a lot of boards. We don't break any bricks in our routine that we're taking to Korea, but all my advanced degrees that are promoting, like my son and daughter are going to second and third degree this June, and so they have to break bricks for their graduation.
Wow. That's amazing. So you'd be happy to know that the name of this podcast is called the Mind's Eye Podcast
Love
because
that.
thank you. I really want to know what drives achievers because I'm getting goosebumps, and I think you actually had a book the last time I spoke to you too, right? Talk about the whatever you want to talk about. You had the
I have
book.
a few books. So many years ago, this is a funny story. I was taking a bath and I saw the book cover like it was a download. I knew I had to write it. I knew what it looked like. I knew what the cover looked like. It was a chain that was just shattered and broken. And the book name was Growth Hurts. And the subtitle was A True Journey of Breaking the Chain and Filling the Void. And it was from a place where my dad chose to get sober. Goodness, over 30 years ago. And
Wow.
his goal was to break the chain in our family. So that's kind of where that all came from. And Growth Hurts was a book that I wrote as I was told to write it. 90 days later, it was published and out on the market. And really, it was the most freeing thing I've ever done in my life because everything I never wanted anybody to know about me, all of my embarrassing secrets and stories, I published. And the
Wow.
moment I published them, anybody could know anything they wanted to know. There's nothing to hide anymore. And that was my first opportunity at living a truly authentic life. That
Man,
was
yeah, no, I really appreciate you saying it. I got the goosebumps, don't lie. It's one of those things where I was just telling you, I was literally helping people get off of hard drugs, because I
yeah,
was on drugs and that was embarrassing for me to talk about that because it's like, hey, Fred, like, that's like, look, I had no clue. I was really that glib as far as, what it looked like, believe it or not. And that's one of the reasons why I was helping people get off hard drugs. So when we started talking about that, I'm just like, man, like watching people go sober to me, it was the most rewarding thing. And to know for a fact that they're going through the process and there's a very specific process, and to watch them transform their lives coming over the other side is totally
yeah,
amazing. And then I can say, been there, I get it. I can look them straight in the eyes and go, I get it. I was there too. Because there's only three options. He's either dead, in jail, or overdosing, and that's
yeah.
when they were coming to us, they knew that their options, and like, you got to put in the work, and I'm so super thankful that I was able to get through it as well. So that was encouraging, inspiring to people. So thank you
Awesome.
for really writing that. Tell me about your book a little bit more if you want to. Like, this is incredible because I always like to go with the flow on these kinds of conversations. And one thing that
Yeah.
I'm struggling with, like, should I be writing a book? Like,
Yes.
how you follow me? Like, because you're even down to your email, it is all about power. So please, I'm going to shut up. Watch this.
So, congratulations. I'll have 15 years sober this November. So
Wow.
it's a pretty exciting. And my dad did. He created the foundation to break the chain in our family and create a new existence. So my childhood, as most of our childhoods, had things in it. Two major things was a really bad car accident with my brother when I was 12 and he was 16, fell asleep at the wheel, went off the road, hit a tree. Lost his leg. He's had lifelong health issues. He literally just had the rest of his leg amputated last June. So when I say lifelong, like we're 30 years in. And then 2 years later, my mom, who was an alcoholic, committed suicide. So that was like a huge, and I was from 12 to 14 years old. So I kind of got a little jumbled in my teenage years dealing with the hormones and then these huge, huge tragedies or traumas. Um, Writing the book was cathartic. So yeah, if you're writing a book to write a book, absolutely write it. I didn't know why I was writing the book, Fred. It was one of the best things I've ever done. And when I published it, I didn't care if one person or 1,000 people read it or a million or a billion. It didn't matter because the benefit of writing it had already been completed the moment I had it in my hand. My daughter just turned 13, and I wouldn't let her read my story until she hit 13. For her 13th birthday, I gave her a copy of my book. Now she knows all my stories. So that was a really cool experience too, because I can't tell the stories like I could, back then when I was still so close to them. But now it's so far removed from who and what I am that I don't even relate to my past self. And that's how growth works, right? You look back and you're like, I know that was me. I have the memories, but how is that me? Like I can't even get there emotionally or physically anymore. Like that's just not how I relate to those experiences anymore.
Wow. I mean, how did you get so like strong? I mean, that's to me, I'm still I'm still like coping with it, if that makes sense. Like the story and because I got kids and it's like, should I, shouldn't I? And then I'm this big, strong Marine, and we're supposed to be this way, and hoorah. And it's like this is I was stuck out in the desert by myself for over a month on record, like literally in the Persian Gulf. It's the craziest story on the planet. So I'm like, if I can survive that, why won't I even write this story? And I'm a journalist. That's the craziest thing about it. Like I'm literally a writer. This is insane. I'm all ears.
Write this down.
Okay.
Vulnerability is my greatest strength.
Hmm.
The challenge with writing and opening that part of you is it's vulnerable. And a lot of the time, we don't want to let people into that level or that depth because they'll get who we really are. And they will see that we're still human beings under the hard shell. That yes, we have these accomplishments. Yes, we've done these things. We have these stories or these mantras that really guide us, and that's who we show up in the world as. And if for a moment we let that guard down, will they still accept us as that thing that we've created that we recognize ourselves as? And the moment you're vulnerable, it gives more power to all of that because now they can relate. Now all the greatness that you are, they can see in themselves. Where prior to that, it's like, wow, that's really great for him. Vulnerability makes it great for your reader. And
Wow.
that's usually what stops us from writing books is really the fear of if they knew, if they really knew. And the answer is yeah, if they knew, Fred, the people who are supposed to follow will follow deeper. The ones that weren't, they'll follow somebody else.
Mm,
And it's all perfect.
wow. I'm gonna let that sink in. Just sit there.
Mhm.
That wasn't one of your other two quotes.
No,
That was a bonus quote.
I'm chock full of them.
We definitely got to go. I want to sit on this one. Vulnerability is my greatest strength.
Mhm.
How did you even think that? Like, what was there's got to be a story behind that.
Yeah, I was told it over and over and over and over in a coaching program. Because I'm strong and I have a hard shell and I can walk through anything and I pride myself in the things that I've overcome. It's like when I had my children, my daughter was an emergency C-section. I was out of bed 12 hours later, walking around the hotel room, left my phone number in the hotel room if they needed to get a hold of me because I wanted to go home. They're like, honey, you're not going home. I said, we'll see. I got released before my daughter did. I took zero drugs, partially because I avoid mind altering chemicals, and partially because I didn't want to numb the pain in my body so I could listen to my body to take care of it. Those are the stories I like to share because they make me awesome. But what they don't do is make me relatable to the people who had a C-section and stayed in the hospital for 3 to 7 days recovering. I'm no longer relatable to that experience, and my experience is abnormal, so I'm less relatable. But if I tell you about at 8:20 p.m. when they came in and they told me that my daughter was in distress, when I tell you that as a mother I feel that I failed because my body wasn't doing the one thing it was designed for, that's relatable to those other mothers. The recovery story is what I chose to make it, but that's not. So, yeah, it's vulnerable to tell people I was afraid. It's vulnerable to tell people that I was heartbroken because my body wasn't working how it was supposed to, and I couldn't birth the way that I had planned or envisioned. And now I have this beautiful 13-year-old incredible human being that I get to raise. And that story is a moment in time. But that's what I mean by the vulnerability. It's like people can relate to vulnerability because we all have it. People can't always relate to the successes. But yeah, you want to get to the end. And speaking of vulnerability, I'm tearing up.
No, thank you for sharing. I really honor this space because it's definitely, I mean, it's one of those things where we're taught, trained, and conditioned to not be vulnerable. And I've done a lot of personal work, but it's like that's something else to really just put it in real practice. You follow me? And it's one of those things where I'm still rediscovering my humanity as well, which is the reasons why I was helping people off of hard drugs. It's just,
Yeah.
for me, because I'm like, wow, so I guess I would ask you, and I really glad that we're taking this conversation, like for somebody who wants to be amazing, like even though that may not be quote unquote relatable, right? But there's somebody who heard that and goes, wait, you did what? I want to. You're a superhero. Like you're not wearing a cape right now, but you got your shirt on. But how did you do that? Like look, my mind's blown.
Yeah. So I have two for you. One is my mantra quote. And that is, it's not what you can do when you feel like it, it's what you can do when you don't. I'm telling the story again, Fred. I know I've told you this before, but it's so critical of where this came from because it's such a huge foundational part of my life. And I think it's the door slam that said it. So I'm 16 years old. I'm sick, like physically ill, and I'm laying in bed. My dad wakes me up for school, and I said, I don't feel like it. And he got so upset. He said, damn it, Amy. It's not what you can do when you feel like it. It's what you can do when you don't. And slams my door. I didn't mean I didn't feel like going to school. I meant I didn't feel like it. Like my body was, I was sick. That's not what he heard, but that moment stayed ingrained in my head for the last almost 30 years. Every time I don't feel like it, I hear that door slam. And it's a trigger response where I'm like, I get I don't feel like it, but I'm going anyway. It's why I'm a third degree black belt. There's many, many times I did not feel like going to practice today. Most of them, actually. And always grateful I did afterwards. It's why my children are the way they are because I've preconditioned them with that conversation. It's not what you can do when you feel like it. It's what you can do when you don't. It's honoring yourself as your word, not as your emotions. Often we let our emotions take control and we lose power in that. I'm going to give you the other one that I didn't give you before that I had a moment. This was also in Taekwondo. It was the first time my original master came up to me and asked me if I wanted to double belt test. And I said no. And that was so weird for me because I'm a go-getter, I'm an accomplisher. I like to do things fast and better and all that stuff, but I just liked going to Taekwondo. I'm like, I don't care what belt I am. I don't care how long it takes. I just want to be here. It's not about getting my black belt. And that was the first time that it was about the journey and not the destination. And I have a box in my closet right now that on the side of it in a Sharpie many years ago, I wrote on the side of it, box of false accomplishments. There are trophies and certificates and awards and all that stuff. And it's not that the accomplishment itself was false, but the intention behind it was. I thought that getting there was going to mean something or do something or prove that I was good enough or whatever the conversation was. And I realized that that box wasn't it. Now, I still kept them all because there are moments in my life, but I kept them in a box that is labeled for what I really believe that it is. And that's what drives me to be amazing is that I don't want negative attention. I want positive attention. I spent a couple years after my mom died utilizing that as my crutch and as my trump card. You'd do it too if your mom killed herself. You would feel this way if your mom died. And it was my excuse. And nobody, what do you say to that? Like there's no rebuttal. You're like, well, oh, okay. Like nobody can relate to that. You just go, okay. And it worked, but it didn't work the way I wanted it to. And so now I go, how do I tell the story of how I was released from the hospital 12 hours after emergency C-section? How do I tell the story that my son was born on a scheduled C-section on Friday and Monday morning I was back at work? How do I tell those stories and then have people be inspired? I want people to be inspired by me. I don't want them to deal with me and work around me.
Mm. Wow.
Does that answer your question? What was the original question?
I don't
How
need
do
you.
you be amazing?
Yeah, I mean, you just killed the gnat with a sledgehammer. I really appreciate this conversation more than you
Yeah.
know. This is really life changing, and I really appreciate you just showing up, man. Oh God, we're going to communicate daily now.
Yay. I'll tell you another story of a book. I went to a retreat and I was leading a little group and I used to do a 90-day turnaround. So I ran restaurants in my younger years and I would always turn them around in 90 days from worst operating to best operating in their area. Very systemic. Like it was literally, I knew exactly what to do on a day by day, week by week basis. And I'm like, okay, after the quarter, I'm going to be number one. And they're like, yeah, right. And I'm like, ta-da. I'm like, I'm telling you, this is just how this system works. This is the results of. And so I led a little small group called 90 Day Turnaround. And in 90 Day Turnaround, in that small group, they're like, how come you haven't written this as a book? And I'm like, you know what? I've started a few times. I just never got through it. And then one of the people in that group looks at me and goes, you can turn a business around in 90 days, but you can't write a book in 90 days. He goes, I find that hard to believe. Okay, challenge accepted. And meanwhile, at that point, I was already scheduled to speak in Indiana. I was already scheduled to speak in Florida. I had a retreat in Phoenix or Tucson or something. Like I had all these things on my calendar. I'm a single mom of two kids. I'm teaching at Taekwondo. I'm training at Taekwondo. I'm on the competition teams. And he goes, you can't write a book in 90 days? Apparently 57 is how long it takes to write, publish, and have a book where I literally sent them the link to buy it. Like less than 90 days, I win.
Wow.
So that one's called 90 Day Turnaround, and it's literally really fast. I think it's like, I don't know, like 60, 70 pages. It's a pretty quick book because I didn't put any stories in it. I just basically said, hey, if you're in a turnaround company, here's how you do it step by step. Bam. Here's what you do day 1 through 14, 15 through 30. Here's where to focus. Here's where to put your attention. And if you do it, it works every time. I've done it in multiple industries, multiple companies. It takes 90 days.
Wow. Well, definitely want to. I'm gonna grab that link so we can share that as well. That's dope.
Yeah, that one was a fun one. So 57 days, Fred, is apparently how long it takes to publish a book. So I'll be looking forward to getting your link because I want to read your story.
Okay. Well, I had actually started working on a book called "When Number One Isn't Good Enough." I think I'll go ahead and continue that.
I love that. I love that.
It, it
Man,
it it came to me. I appreciate it. It came to me after scaling up my fourth company to a few $100 million.
yeah.
And the more money I made, the more miserable I was. It was just
Uh-huh.
I, I had so much hate on making money. I was like, I'll show you, mom, there. She's never heard this story now. Now I just got outed. Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome. Vulnerability is your greatest strength, Fred. Well done.
100%. I'm going for it. And the thing about it is I have to get these stories out of my head because I really haven't had anybody legally to talk to. And a lot of people don't know that. Even when I met you, I technically still had a secret clearance because I was never properly ramped down in the military, and that's part of my covenants. And then you know how it is in corporate America, non-compete, non-disclosure,
Oh, yeah.
non-solicitation, all of these nons because you're just that flipping good. And I just got to, yeah, it's like my third or fourth company starting from scratch, small team. And then it just wasn't connecting because I was still traveling, and I just stopped that. When I met you, I was still traveling. I was home about 6 or 7 days out of the month. So just get envision that for like 15 plus years, nonstop. I knew all the plane timetables. I knew when I had to go to Hawaii. Like I just knew the whole timetable across the whole United States. And it just people just like how I'm like, I don't even know. But I was miserable, and I was really getting depressed. And it was one of
Mhm.
those things where people would look at me, and I'm crying in my custom shoes and my jackets. And so I understand when
Oh,
people
and it's worse because who can you cry to? Who do you, how do you have the right to be human when you're successful? That one's
how
a really
dare
tough
you?
one.
Yeah, how
Mm-hmm.
dare you be human? And that's to your point, that's exactly what happened. I mean, and I had a negative correlation between success and losing your humanity. That was my
Mm.
biggest, yeah,
Yep, that makes sense.
yeah.
Because now it has to look and be and feel and all these things. But I think part of the journey of success is getting there to realize that it wasn't what you always thought it would be. And
I
that all
stuff,
the answers you were originally looking for were actually right where you were before you left them and you didn't know it.
yep. My favorite book is Acres of Diamonds. It's actually more of a
Oh
speech.
yeah.
Ta-da! You never knew what a diamond looked like, so there it is. Just sitting on your mantle all of this time. You had no clue. Yeah,
Hmm.
super
It's a
facts.
great story. But we still have to do it because we have to prove it to ourselves.
Yeah,
And until you achieve the goal, you'll never know that it was never the goal.
yeah.
You'll never know. You
And
have
I
to achieve it first.
Yeah, and I would say that definitely started with my addictive personality, and hence me getting on drugs and a lot of other crazy stuff because it was just like my synaptics were just blown out of my head just from like knowing timetables, like traveling all over. Like I had everything dialed in around the country. That's how crazy my life was, just nonstop. And yeah, so it was a form of withdrawal actually coming out of that environment.
Yeah,
And I never, for the record, wanted to just do anything to really harm myself. But I understand why Olympic athletes kind of feel that way, or people ramping out of the military, because that was my job as well in the military. I was very high level, and then it's like a hamster slipping off the wheel and 200 miles an hour and just sliding down off the glass. Like, it's just like that's what happened. I'm just like,
that was
nobody
a great
cares.
visual.
Nobody, yeah. Just like nobody cares.
I, I see the little face stuck against the glass sliding down.
Yeah, yeah. It's like that was my saying for it. That was my mantra. Nobody cares about Fred. Nobody cares about Fred. And that actually you have to be careful. That's when I did learn really understand the power of words. Like you really have to be careful about what you're openly manifesting because
Absolutely.
it carries weight. And I happen to be a really prolific writer, so it didn't help. So anytime somebody goes to speak something, I go, "Oh, measure twice, cut once. Let's make sure we
Right. Sorry,
carpenter's
words have
principle."
power. Let me consider this for a moment.
Yeah, it's a very powerful lesson, and I'm and admittedly just recovering from it. It's one of those things where I'm like when 2020 hit, it was a vacation for me. I'm like, "Whoa, nobody's around. I can, well, wait, I do need people to talk to." But the
I
other
did
thing too,
I did Grey's Anatomy and puzzles. That was 2020 for me. Actually, I did also become a foster parent in 2020, so that was pretty cool.
nice, that's awesome.
Figured if
And
we're stuck at home, I should be a single mom of 5 kids under 10 years old because that would be more fun.
yeah, I mean, that's genius. I mean, and that's the thing about it. Like, you have so many stories. It's just you're very Does anybody ever called you prolific? I mean, is that a good label? You're very prolific?
No, I don't think so, but I like it.
Yeah. I just see all the dots connecting. I mean, it's like a mosaic of like how we get here, like this the stitching, right? Because even
Yeah.
during that time, like I was telling you on the phone, the other thing that caused me to become a lot more human. Now I'm a full-blown humanitarian for real. Was my wife almost dying. Nobody really even knows that except on my personal timeline. Like I'm glad this big brain was able to really, like I was telling you before on the phone, I'm like, I had a choice to make. And I was like, it's not a choice. I choose her. The rest of the stuff I can
Yeah.
always get. I ain't worried about it. Just, but this
Hmm.
is my wife. My wife is my life, period. So
That's awesome. Not that she almost died, but that you're able to really hone in and focus and make a difference there.
yeah, 100%. So, and I was gonna ask you too, like as far as like your next steps, like I know you mentioned about the Olympics and a lot of other things. What does the future hold? I mean, I want you to brag on yourself a little bit. I mean,
Yes.
you're kind of low key about it. I'm like, brag on yourself.
So we won first place in the United States International Hamnadong um last July. So that was a really cool experience. That's a video I sent over to you as our performance. And then this summer we're going to the World Championships in Korea to go compete against the Koreans. So that's going to be amazing. And we have a good enough routine that I'm planning on bringing home gold. We'll see what we do because those guys are like upside down and fly, do all kinds of crazy stuff. But we can match them. And when you look at our team, it's incredible. Like my daughter is the youngest one on the team. She's 13 years old. That's incredible. I'm the oldest one on the team. I'm 29 for the 13th time.
You ain't gonna get me caught up. I know better.
So we have a really big span. We got a lot of teenagers, and it's what a cool experience that we get to go do this. And then 2028 Olympics are going to be held in Los Angeles, and Taekwondo demo teams are on the potential docket. So that's why I say we're Olympic hopefuls because it's not guaranteed that it'll be there, but we're definitely gunning for 2028 Olympics.
Wow. And I
Yeah,
just want to really, I keep hearing this. I gotta ask you, my journalistic ears is
go ahead.
perking up. The actual discipline of
Uh-huh.
Taekwondo is that a accurate statement? Is that the discipline? Is that is do you find that helped, or because I don't want to presume anything, like was there how I guess a better question would be how were you able to integrate it into your life based on your story?
Okay, well, I'll tell you that when I was a kid, I grew up next to the Olympic Training Center, and there was a taekwondo school right across the street, and I wanted to do it so bad, Fred,
Hmm.
like so bad, but we couldn't afford it. I single mom, we were poor, the whole story. Had my brother's hand-me-downs. We didn't get extracurriculars. Mom would borrow my birthday money to take us out to dinner, kind of deal. So it was one of those things in childhood that I was always upset with my mom about that I could never participate because she didn't make enough. And it wasn't until I was a much older adult that I realized that we weren't poor, we were broke, and she mismanaged money. We would have been fine if she had better financial principles. But that is a whole nother podcast. Um, when I was 24, I went to the turning point and I was still angry at my mom for the taekwondo thing. And then realized I was a whole adult and it was ridiculous to be upset with my mom over something from 20 years prior or 15 years prior, and that I was now able to make those decisions and if I wanted it to go do it. So I did. Went and signed up for taekwondo. And my dad went with me and he is now a black belt. And then when my kids were old enough to train, they started going and I told them you got a choice, quit or black belt. And if you quit, you got to choose another activity because you're going to participate in something. I don't care if it's this, but you got to do something. But if you commit to black belt, you're getting your black belt before you're given the opportunity to choose to quit again. And so they made that choice at 4 and 6 years old that they were staying until they got their black belt. They got to black belt and I said, you need to do one test after your black belt to experience it. Then you can choose again, second degree or quit. There is no in between. And they both chose second degree. So and Destiny is now getting her third degree. After second, I'm like, now you can just show up. You've put in the work. Now it's up to you whether you want to participate. But I wanted them to get at a young age that you can create a future goal and not know what obstacles are going to show up. and still be committed to that goal and find a way to cause it to happen. But you have to be committed to that goal. I figured if they get that at, 4, 5, 6 years old, they'll be unstoppable. And then my daughter flipped her first house at 7. She had no idea that, there's a goal. It's achievable. You just keep showing up. And that's what they've learned. So to answer your question, that's how Taekwondo fit in. And it's more of it matches my principles, but it didn't define them.
Mm.
So like integrity, perseverance, dedication, determination, all those things were something that I had from other sources, and Taekwondo kind of wrapped it into this nice little bow. And now my kids are being trained through Taekwondo instead of through trauma, which is really cool.
Yeah, that is huge. And as far as like your your drive, right? Do you think a lot of it had to do with you naturally? Because you also said you were next to the Olympic facility. So,
Uh-huh.
I mean, the energy, just like was it a combination of both? You see where I'm going at with the question?
No, it was my mom and my grandma when I was really little. This is the probably the best thing they could have ever done. They told me that they believed in me and I could be anything. And I believed in what they said. So I, to this day, have never had the conversation of I can't. That word doesn't exist. It's I'm not willing to put the work in to be able to do that the way that I want to. That's a different conversation versus I can't. So that's where my drive came from. You can be anything you want to be. I still believe them, Fred. I've become everything I wanted to be every time I choose. But that is why, because I've always believed them. Now, they could have said the same words and I could have not believed them and had a different result, but I believed them.
Wow. And you said something earlier. So, and I really appreciate you sharing this because I'm working to really get this
Yeah.
perspective of just like how you like have a house full of champions. That's what I'm hearing. Like at fair,
Black belt
actually.
family, literally black belt family.
And the house flip at 7, was that just to show that she could do it? Was there a different lesson there?
No, here's what happened. It was it,
They're
it
like,
was
you can learn
spring
how to flip
break.
houses now. Black belt and flip houses.
It was spring break. I think she was in like second grade, and it was foreclosure auction day. But I'm a single mom. I don't, so I take my daughter to the foreclosure auction because what else am I going to? I'm not leaving her at home at 7 years old. So we walk into the auction, and the auctioneer looks at me and goes, "Are you going to have her bid?" And I'm like, "No." And then I started thinking about it. I was like, wait, if I let her bid, I don't have to go turn in the bid sheet. Cool. So I handed her the bid sheet. I'm like, go turn this in. She goes, okay. And she takes it up there. She comes back. I go, listen, our company name was Superior Renovated Homes. I said, every time they say Superior, I just need you to say plus 500. She goes, okay. So she's sitting there and he would go around the room to all the different bidders and he'd say Superior and she'd go, plus 500. Everybody'd giggle. And it was the cutest darn thing. And then Bryce, one of our investors dropped, or one of the investors dropped out. And then Matt was across the room still bidding. And then Bryce was yelling at Matt, Matt, how can you bid against a little girl, man? What's wrong with you? So then Matt dropped out and Destiny won the house. And I
Wow.
was like, you bought it, you fix it. She goes, okay. And so we did. We went to an investor meeting like that afternoon. Then we went by the house and looked it over. I took her to meet with the regional director of Home Depot. I took her to meet with title reps so that she could understand the process. She walked the project manager through it and gave him the scope. And it was impressive. I hadn't realized how much she learned just being around it growing up. 7 years old, she managed her first project. Number 7 year old houseflipper.com. Yeah, I videoed that. It was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. Text me all of these links. This is so epic.
Which links did I tell you? Let's see. There's the books,
Yep, yep.
Destiny,
Taekwondo,
TKD. Ooh, that's a good one. So I would like to use your podcast as a request to support.
100%. Go for it.
Awesome. So here's my request for anybody listening to this podcast. Our Taekwondo school has a 5013C called Champions Leadership Academy. And through that, last October, we were able to go to Mexico and we went to Oaxaca. We trained sex trafficking victims and potential victims in self defense. We were able to fund and build a church for a local community. And we got to really go and do, and we also got to perform for the president, which was really cool. So we look for opportunities to do outreach, and we go on outreach programs about every other year. And then the in between years is when we focus on like world championships or some of the bigger competitions. So that's my request for support is to, oh, I don't know, send me an email. Oh, is that scary? That's scary, isn't it?
Well, I can have them go straight to the link as well because I'm going to also blast it out to my email.
That personal link is only good until Tuesday. So that's a really quick fundraiser
Uh,
that
yeah,
literally we're looking at gaining funds to pay for our Korea plane tickets. But yes, by Tuesday, anything we can get in would be phenomenal. But for overall, you can look us up at the Academy of Life and Leadership Taekwondo in Colorado Springs. Our grandmaster is Barb Kunkel. She was an Olympian in Sydney, Australia, and she's an eighth degree black belt and phenomenal and does incredible things. Also, here's one for you, Fred. With our circle, her personal goal is to finish her book and get on stage. The woman has a story. She's incredible, and that's really where she's going. And me to you, I would really appreciate support in getting her on stage to tell her story. She's
100%.
unbelievably powerful.
She's more than
So
welcome to come over here too. Just let me know. We'll connect it and make it happen. That's
I would
awesome.
love that. That woman is off the charts amazing. She has made a profound difference for me. My children are who they are because of her. Being a single mom in a village, which is our school, we are a village, has been a different. It's hard for me to say single mom because I don't feel like a single mom because I have such a huge community. But I do have my kids 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So for me, that conversation is I don't get to ship them off to dad's house and I have to always pick them up from school. But that's another one. My
100%.
life is what it is because I put the boundary in place that I will always drop my kids off and always pick them up from school.
Mm,
Everything has to fit in that. Every morning we drive to school, we listen to Darren Daily. Do you know what Darren Daily is?
no, I'm gonna write it
Oh, it's
down.
a good one. DarrenDaily.com. It's free. It's a usually a 5 minute up to a 10-minute video. And he was the publisher of Success Magazine. That man is phenomenal. It's Darren Hardy. I've been to a lot of his higher volume stuff. He's just he has studied success at the intricacies of studying success. And then he'd like, here you go, here's a 3 minute or a 5 minute video to start your day. So we listen to that on the way to school every morning. And I ask him every morning, what did you get out of it? Because it's not just listening, it's listening for a reason. And then after school, I ask them two questions. And I always ask them in this order. What was the worst part of your day? What was the best part of your day? I ask it in that order because I want to stay off. I want to leave off on the positive, but it gives me a barometer of what their whole day was. And they know I ask that question every single day. So every day they know it's coming. So they plan for it and they look at their day. Or if their best isn't like something they want to share, they'll go create a best. It's really, really a cool experience.
Man, that is cool. I mean, you're not too far from me. I think you said Colorado Springs. I actually got a pretty funny story about that. Love to come check you out. But literally, I was going to see an automotive dealer at the time, and we were going across the plains, and I saw Buffalo, and it was snow, and I'm just like, oh, Colorado Springs. The guy's like, you're not supposed to be taking this road. I'm like, okay, it's a back road. I love Colorado Springs. It's beautiful up there. Oh my God, it's gorgeous.
It's beautiful. I love it here. It is one of two homes. My other one is Huntington Beach.
Oh yeah. Well, definitely
Love
come this
Huntington
way
Beach.
again. Just look me up. They're all good. And I want to ask one more thing because I know you said you had to
Yeah.
run in a short period of time. Boundaries. I think
Yes.
that's a key word right here because again, this is literally the mind's eye. So in the mind's eye, your mind's eye, why are boundaries so important?
If you if you say yes too much, you cut off what you really want. Let me explain that. So let's say I don't believe in finite except for some finite things. I think energy is infinite. I think opportunity and possibility is infinite. What I do believe is finite are things like time in a day. It's measurable, it's already defined. My time is my most protected asset over anything. Like, you want my time, it's got to be incredibly, incredibly important. Um, I put the boundaries around my kids because I didn't want somebody else raising them. I didn't want to be at work from 9 to 5, which is why I drop them off. I pick them up. I can't work a 9 to 5. I use the can't word. That's funny. I cannot work a 9 to 5 and still fulfill that boundary. So therefore, it is a choice. So I choose my work has to be done while my kids are at school. Now I have to create my life around that. That means no 9 to 5. I have to be creative. How do I still make enough money to make ends meet in these hours? Oh, and if they are sick or it's a snow day, that it doesn't impact the things or the commitments that I said I'd make. So the more protected that I make the important things in my life, the more I get the life that I want. I can say yes all day long, but who am I saying yes to, them or me?
Mm,
So, in all selfishness, I choose me. And what matters most to me is being a mom. And I say that specifically because most moms say, my kids are the most important. No, my kids are not the most important thing to me. The experience of motherhood that I want to have is the most important thing to me. They are just merely benefiting over my chosen experience because it works well for them too. But it is not about them, it is about my experience in this life. Like, you guys get to choose your experience when you're parents. You guys can choose your experience of childhood while you're in it. But your experience of childhood is not dependent on me. That is your choice. That is your perspective, your reactions, what you choose to create and what you're willing to stand for. Do not do not make my experience of motherhood the cost of your desired experience of childhood, which we're going to ruin anyway. Here's one for you. A friend of mine once told me, my mom loved me too much. And that was it, Fred. I was like, that's it. There's no way that any parent can do this parenting thing right. Like, so many parents give up so much to try to give their children this experience of childhood they think their kid's going to have. But all of us have issues with our parents, 100%. So why am I going to give up my experience of motherhood for something that I already know is a foregone conclusion? Like, you're already going to be mad at me. I'm having a good time.
just whistle.
Why am I going to sacrifice my experience of motherhood and still not be able to get the desired? Nope. Sorry, guys. This is about me. Now, I'll tell you, they love their childhood. It's a fantastic one. I look at them, I go, I think I'm living vicariously. However, I'm getting the experience of motherhood that I want. I'm not sacrificing. It's amazing. So there you go. There's a mind's eye. Mind's eye, my cat's name is Anya, which is the third eye chakra.
Awesome.
White spot in the middle of her black head, right there, like a third eye.
I appreciate you just coming through. I know we're just getting started again, and please support her. Much love to you, and I'm just so thankful that we really connected on such a deep level. This is amazing. Like, you're just totally walking red meat.
Thank you so much, Fred. I appreciate you.
100%. And if anybody, any parting words, if you want people to get a hold of you or just, check you out, it's cool.
Um,
Your book.
I'll send over links if they're interested. They can go check them out. I do have parting words because I shared my big legacy quote, which is, it's not what you can do when you feel like it, it's what you can do when you don't. But I want to share my message. And my message to the world is that power comes from personal responsibility and uncollapsing the definition of responsibility and fault. And what I mean by that is, my definition of responsibility is there's something that I could have done or could have not done that would have produced a different result. And wouldn't you agree that anytime you apply that definition, the answer is absolutely. I could have either done or not done something that would have made something different. Inside that definition, we have power over all circumstances, reactions, and things in our life. And I want people to have power and not be victim to their circumstances or events or experiences, because while they are true and while the experience is real, we still have power in those moments.
Amy, wow. Thank you. That is truly a blessing. Very powerful. I fully receive it. And just thank you for showing up the way that you do to the world. Just amazing precision, authenticity, and just badass.
I love you. Mwah.
Much love back at you. And guys, please check us out. Go check her out. She's going to drop some links. If you're on my email list, jump on there. I'm also going to send a link out to you as well via YouTube. So really appreciate you coming through, Amy. Hold on for a second. I just want to say my proper goodbyes. And remember, you check it out here. It's on the mind's eye because we just deal with the drivers of the society, and she's exhibit A. She's a driver all day long, man. I'm hugging your brain right now. You're just totally amazing. So thank you so much, Amy. All right, guys. We'll chat soon. Peace.